Hi, my name is Stefania. 1 year ago, I got my PhD degree in biophysics. And after much thought and deliberation, I decided to leave academic environment and do not continue my scientific career. This decision was hard and I shaken. For a long time, I was wondering, where would my experience be useful? I was thinking to try in the different field, in voluntary, in private corporation sector, but suddenly I came to the conclusion that the problem is not in me, as I figured out that there are even more scientists, young scientists, thinking the same way. Scientists which are not happy with the current academic system. Because now science is not fast enough, it is not fair, it is not transparent, it is not reproducible. Science is about the huge waste of money, sometimes with corruption component. Most of the scientific research is locked under the paywalls with strict copyrights. Science has problems with private companies, which represent themselves as offering service in tracking, visualizing, and analyzing scientific research. And of course, science is under the influence of commercial and political lobbies. For these reasons, together with other like-minded people, I decided to create Open Science TV. I hope that this project will make our science open and will change our world for better. This is kind of a war, and I urge you to stay guard over interest of a progressive society. So let's go. So our first video is about the highly negative role of a peer review process in scholarly communication. In May 2020, the prestigious medical journal, The Lancet, published the scientific paper about the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19. The authors claimed that they were unable to confirm the benefits of this drug. Consequently, in the view of the journal authority, the most of the clinical trials on hydroxychloroquine were stopped. Hopefully, in June, this paper was revised independently and was declared to be flagged. Under the pressure of academic community and governments, it was retracted or removed from the journal. But how could it happen actually? This paper was not posted on social media such as fake news. It was published in the respectful journal, and in addition, before being published, it got peer-reviewed. It means that other scientists evaluated this article as a high-quality research. From the side of The Lancet, it charges $5,000 to make a scientific article publicly available. And this money is coming from taxes of citizens. To discuss this, today our guest is Mateus Pereira Lobo, mathematician and physicist, a professor at the Federal University of Tocantins in Brazil, and co-editor of the Open Journal of Mathematics and Physics. So, hi Mateus, I'm glad to see you today, and actually I have a question for you. Are there any alternatives to this elitist and dysfunctional system that cost us thousands of lives lost in COVID-19? Can you tell me more about your journal and the difference between it and the commercial journals such as The Lancet or Nature? So please.
Okay, great. A great question. If one asks, why have you created the Open Journal of Mathematics and Physics? And I would say essentially for two reasons. First, because we can offer a totally free service. So this is called our journal is it's called Diamond Open Access because it's free to publish and it's free to read. Okay, and there is another bonus that since we have created as an overlay journal, It's also free to create and maintain it. So everyone interested can create her or his own journal without paying nothing to create it. The only amount of money that I spend is for proofreading the English because it's not my native language, so I need someone to proofread uh, the English. The second reason we have created, it's very important. It's because it's faster. It's very, very fast to publish, to write, and to read micro articles. Um, and I would say that the difference from the commercial journals is that in addition of being free, it's well ahead in terms of flexibility of the articles being published. It's very far ahead because of the micro article formats, which we can talk more about it.
Okay, thank you. Can you explain how does it work, the peer review process?
It's important to mention that the peer review process is kind of new in science. I'm not sure the date, but I guess before the 70s, um, the articles were not peer reviewed. They were published only reviewed by the editor. Uh, One example is Einstein. Einstein was the editor of a journal,
Mhm.
and there was an important work from Kaluza and Klein, very important work that Einstein he it took 2 years for him to get the article published. But what I would like to say is that uh, we have something from the old school that is publishing an article only with the reviewing from the editor. So this is much more accelerated. And after doing that, the article is will undergo to peer reviewers. So specialists who will read uh, and see if there are some things that can be improved. But the editors are specialty editors. So uh, this, even before being peer reviewed, it's unlikely that the article has some errors, some mistakes, some huge mistakes. So aside from the peer reviewers, we also let the articles for an open review. So anyone can read the article and suggest improvements. So this is also a review, but it's called open review.
So, in the commercial publishing, this review process is like anonymous. It's like no one knows who is peer reviewing you. But in your journal or in like open journals, this peer review process is like open and everyone registered can actually add their thoughts about this paper, etc.
There are many known cases that everything in the article is correct and the referee rejects it only by personal taste. I have a personal story. I um, I was in my PhD, starting the PhD, and I had a result from my master's. But I was alone on that result. Uh, so I wrote a paper and sent it to a European journal, an European journal. And then I got an answer from two reviewers. One was very intelligent and asked very pertinent questions. And the second wrote the following. He wrote, uh, "This is the most stupid paper I have ever read."
This is terrible. I mean,
Terrible, terrible.
but this is not even terrible. This is discouraging. I mean,
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
but at least you have a reference for another referee telling you that this is okay. So it means that probably there's something wrong with another
yes.
referee.
Yes, fortunately I was very calm on that moment. Then I just answered. I answered to the editor that this referee was extremely rude. Okay, and then I answered the other referee, and I answered everything he said. And finally, I got the paper published in the magazine.
Ah,
Thank you.
congratulations! You managed to do this.
Thank you.
So you have mentioned about the open peer review. Can you tell me more about it?
Yes, yes. This is a very important. The open science community are working with something called open peer review. There are three most common modifications. I mean, open peer review has three meanings. Okay. One meaning of open peer review is that authors and reviewers are aware of each other's identity. Okay. This is one meaning for the open peer review. The second meaning for the open peer review is that the review reports are published alongside the article rather than being kept confidential. This is the second meaning. And the third meaning is for the open participation. The wider community and not just invited reviewers are able to contribute to the review process. This third definition of open review is what we are using at the OGMP. It's open to anyone, uh, even formal and not and informal scientists. Okay, so maybe some 12-year-old child that reads, and if she or he has some brilliant suggestions, they can co-author the article.
Ah, great. I didn't know that I didn't know that this like a scientific publishing process, it actually ignores like citizens, like little or big genius, which probably not working in science, but working in programming code, because it's still kind of close to what, I mean, the theory on maths and physics actually. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for your journal to be open to citizens. But actually, it does exist in open science this kind of definition of citizen science. That means that citizens can actually participate in the scientific process. Is that kind of applicable to your journal? So you're just like part of the citizen science.
Yes, 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 exactly. There's this term, citizen science, which people are doing. Uh, there are two types of citizen science. The first, there are some major websites, platforms that they do citizen science, but it's, I don't quite it's too mechanical. They put mechanical work for thousands of people. Okay, no problem about that, but uh, it's not so much intellectual work. But the problem is that those thousands of people do not get credits. They do not.
And they probably not get skills, like they just press a
Uh,
button on
eh,
something. Yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. Yes, exactly. This is one type of citizen science. The second type of citizen science is what we are proposing, but we are not pioneer doing this. If you if anyone read the book Reinventing Discovery from the physicist Michael Nielsen, it's an excellent book. I got caught for the open science because of that book. uh, and yes, there in that book he shows the Polymath project. The Polymath project is doing all we we are doing. The Polymath project is doing this as solving a mathematical problem with with many people. But the problem is that they are not, again, they are not, at least as I knew the past, I don't know how is it today, but they were not giving proper credit. The paper comes like, the author of the paper is the Polymath Project. And and is not mentioned the authors. So I had the idea to give credit so everyone can join the paper and is co-authoring
Even
the
if
paper.
it's 1,000 people.
Yes, yes. So yes, the physicists. There's a good journal in the Physical Review Letters. I would say probably the best scientific journal in physics. They have one paper with 5,154 authors in the paper.
As you told us that you are publishing on your journal this minimalistic scientific articles or so-called micro articles. For example, I saw titles such as "What is the temperature of time?" "The exterior of the universe and the interior of a black hole," or about time travel, coexistence of past, present, and future. What is the interest to publish those articles?
And so micro articles are short versions of scientific articles with some extra features. For example, in the micro articles, there's no need to add introduction and context. Every traditional scientific article, uh, they are full of introduction and context, which is great for the reader. Of course, it's great. But um, I think writing articles with introduction and context is not the only way of doing science. So we are proposing another way of doing science. We are now 2020 in the having informational revolution. We are in the middle of in the beginning of an informational revolution. So we have Google, we have Scholar Google, and we have great traditional papers with lots of introduction and context. So what we need is articles. We don't need more articles with introduction and context. So micro articles put that as optional, the introduction and context, which is great for who is writing it. It's much faster because you spend a lot of time writing introduction and context. So this is one feature of micro articles. The other feature, which is very important, and I think this is unique in the world, is that our articles can be updated even after its prior publication. Is it possible? This is possible, technically speaking, because we have an overlay journal. And what is an overlay journal? Overlay journal was invented by the field medalist Timothy Growers. Uh, yeah, the Fields Medal is the Nobel of Mathematics, so it's a very important prize. And he invented the overlay journal. What is an overlay journal? You uh, you put the the papers are hosted in the preprint server. Yes, arXiv is the most famous repository of physics, physicists, physics and mathematics. Now we have other repositories in Europe. The one we are using in our journal, is the Open Science Framework. So even after the articles are published in our journal, the author can improve the article and add extra information, even add extra co-authors,
Ah,
even
okay.
after publication. New authors can join what is actually happening nowadays in our journal. So this feature is very innovative. I think it's unique in the world.
So while you are using like terms such as open access, open peer review, open framework, all of them are about openness in science. Open science definition doesn't have like fixed term, because one community said that the open science is one thing, another one another, completely another. Both probably will not agree that open science needs to be like open to public, because certainly it can harm public security, etc., and can be used for third people. But what is the open science for you, and how you see the research process following open science principle?
Okay, great question. For me, I'm a little bit optimistic with everything. This is not always a good approach, but it's the way I am. Uh, so for me, the word open in open science is the open word is very strong in all senses. So my definition of open science includes what I call mandatory key features, such as it's, it, it must be free to publish and free to read. Okay. Each and every citizen should be able to join the research and co-author the article. It's another mandatory feature, and it should have total total transparency in terms of reproducibility. Let me tell you something about this last issue, reproducibility. I started studying physics for 20 years, and so when I was 40 years old, I discovered that my true passion is pure mathematics. So that's the reason why I started a second PhD on computational algebra. And one thing that I was a bit frustrated about physics, it has to do with reproducibility. So the physics theoretical papers, I'm a theoretical physicist and mathematician. So when you read a theoretical paper on physics, not every step the author gives you what you need to obtain that result. This is awful. This is bad. Uh, you spend weeks sometimes to discover what he's doing. This is like reinventing the wheel. It's not nice. In the other side, the pure mathematics, this doesn't have happen with pure mathematics. Every theorem that is proved, it has all the essential ingredients you need to to reproduce that proof. Uh, so um, so for me, this is the definition of open: free to publish, free to read, open for everyone, and with total transparency in order to have reproducibility.
So it seems that peer review process and current academic system not only like slow down research and development, but also prohibit scientists to kind of integrate, to participate in scientific process.
I totally agree with you. It's exactly that. Suppose there are funny stories in physics of articles extremely, how can I say, ahead of its time, and that received a lot of rejections. And this is very bizarre. This is the bias of peer review process, because when you have freedom, and we have that in our journey, you have freedom to publish whatever crazy idea you have, as long as it is logical. If it has a sequence of logical steps, even when I say logical, sometimes you don't have mathematics explicitly, no equations, but a logic written with words only. Uh, so in this way, I think we need to rethink the peer review process. Yes.
So, from your point of view, how open science practices can help with global issues and actually enhance our development and progress?
I'd like to say something that is not probably usual, but I think
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
important. The next great grand revolution for humankind has to do with what I call Internet of People.
Wow.
And what is Internet of People? By Internet of People, I mean the full and almost instantaneous travel of people around and beyond our globe. Okay, this is a technology based on warp drive travel. It comes from a quantum property which allows space and time to bend, creating a shortcut between 2 points in space. Uh, Doing that, you can travel superluminal, greater speeds. For example, you can join from in seconds, you could travel to any part of our globe. So yeah, this I know this sounds a bit like science fiction,
No, no,
but
I mean, I am okay while there is the idea. I think this is the problem of our kind of media or the publication, that we do not let people to say to express their ideas. This is just the idea. It doesn't say. I mean, I'm sure that 100 years ago, people did not even imagine that we can get internet connection, that we can call, we can contact our like friends and see them on the camera. And that was
yeah,
not in their mind. And probably in 100 years, it could happen that we can travel like quantum. Why not? I mean, I'm just like maybe it will not go in the way we imagine it. Maybe we will travel not by our like uh, like bodies. We will travel by our minds, because certainly there are a different like options about this idea. So don't worry about it.
uh, yes, I believe open science can get us closer if we make a global effort and use the power of collective intelligence in this sense to achieve this technology that I'm calling Internet of People, because people could travel as fast as nowadays data are traveling. So this would definitely change the course of human existence, in my opinion.
So thank you, Mateus, for your thoughts and opinion. I was actually very happy to meet you today, to learn more about current problems in academia, about open science as a solution, and of course about your journal and the idea about our future with Internet of People. Let's hope that it will become reality in our lifetime. So I would like to ask our viewers to subscribe to our channel and social media, register at Public Reform Forum to leave your comment about this interview, and of course, give us a thumbs up to support our project. And bye, and see you soon.